September 19th Board of Director meeting, and we are reconvening to open session and reporting out of closed session at 7:35. Nothing to report out except one correction, that the government code that we have stated for the closed session is incorrect, and it needs to read 54956.9B3. Great. We move on to open forum. At this point, if you can give me 1 second so I can tell you what the rules are. Members of the public can speak to any item that's not on the agenda or is part of the closed session for 5 minutes. We have 20 minutes total, and if you can please come to the podium, state your name, and also any items that you want to talk about, if you can combine all and come to the podium once. Be respectful, please, and before I open to the public, I would like to read a letter that was sent to us that the president wanted us to read it at this time, and then I open it to the public. I'll extend the time to 20 minutes to be 20 minutes from the time that the public stands up and speaks. This letter was sent to us by Rosemary Ocamp. She's a resident in Cameron Park, and the letter says, "Hi, Mary Cahill. Jack and I are so excited to have a deputy at our Cameron Park CSD Board meetings. This will help us come back to our meeting feeling safer. We were afraid for our safety since the negative people arrived 5 years ago to fill our meetings with false accusation to our board, foul language, ugly signs, and rudeness. I am sure the deputy will help bring the volunteers back so we can keep Cameron Park a beautiful place I live, and our board meetings our board meetings back to business as usual. But thank you, Mary. Have missed being part of our community. Rosemary Ocamp." So at this point, open to members of the public.
Good evening, Chair Wilsma. I'd like to make some comments. At a meeting in the spring of 2011, Director Scott McNeil and Bill Carey were engaged in a heated exchange when a man jumped up and ran in front of the assembly towards Mr. Carey, screaming, "I'll choke you." At that time, Director McNeil, who was board president, did nothing. He did not gavel the meeting to order. He did not try to restrain the gentleman from rushing and possibly attacking Mr. Carey. He just sat at the dais with his grinning and doing nothing. At the time, the other board members, Sheila Frenzen, Greg Stanton, and Olive Clark, also did nothing. Neither of them tried to intercede and restrain this gentleman from rushing to attack Mr. Carey. None of these board members shouted a point of order as to force the board president to gavel the meeting to order. At this time, this gentleman was allowed to remain at the meeting and was not barred from the subsequent meetings. At no point was this gentleman required to apologize to Mr. Carey or the assembly for his outburst. At subsequent meetings, there were no police presence to protect Mr. Carey from physical attack or to maintain order. At several meetings this year, Director Frenzen, as board president, has allowed Irene Arnold and other people to stand during open forum as a means of protest because they did not like what was being said about the board. These people were allowed to try and intimidate speakers at the podium from exercising their First Amendment rights. Director Frenzen did not gavel these people down. When these people were disrupting meetings, several meetings in a row, Sean Tucker didn't say point of order, point of order. Alan Clark did not propose changing district policy to prevent these types of outbursts. Greg Stanton didn't call for civility, and Scott sat grinning and doing nothing. Now, the reason I point these out is because I've been doing some research about viewpoint discrimination. We discussed that last month. The above incidences constitute the standard of conduct that this board has established. Outbursts and demonstrations at the level of these examples mentioned or at a lesser level of intensity cannot be violations of CSD meeting etiquette or considered disruption without being viewpoint discrimination. And I've researched this extensively, and this is my conclusion. Now, whispering between attendees, outbursts of laughter or applause are not disruptions, according to what your standards are. Disagreeing with a member of the board who's at or conducting a meeting is not a disruption. It does not rise to the level of disruption or intended intimidation as the above examples and must be accepted behavior at CSD meetings as prescribed by the California Government Code, C. Brown Act, and case law. Thank you.
David Gilbert, feeling a little nervous without the presence of law enforcement here this evening, but I'll try to muddle through this. The last board meeting I thought was quite illuminating. We were able to plainly see which board members would stand up and defend free speech and which board members have no tolerance for it. Unfortunately, the free speech haters on the board carried the day 3-2. Predictably, Scott McNeil, Sean Tucker, and political science professor Alan Clark have no use for the annoyance that free speech brings to public meetings. I want to thank Shiva Frenson and Greg Stanton for at least taking an honest look at the First Amendment and the Brown Act. The three free speech haters on the board were ably assisted by our ever-astute general manager, Mary Cahill, who tried her best to circumvent even having a discussion of free speech with her not-so-subtle bullying tactic of bringing in a county sheriff in an attempt to intimidate and silence her critics. That was certainly a colossal waste of $500 that a district running a deficit budget didn't need to spend, as the sheriff leaned up against the wall and played on his cell phone for 5 hours. Well, Mary and Alan and Sean and Scott, you should know by now that we cannot be that easily intimidated. After all, we've been threatened by attorneys, had the sheriff call on us before, threatened to be thrown out of meetings, but you know what? We're still here, still criticizing your insane behavior and inept management of the district. In related news, we had Professor Clark and the ever-astute General Manager Mary Cahill collaborate on an absolutely childish presentation about the reasons why free speech needs to be eliminated at these meetings. I want to thank you two for that, sponsoring that waste of time. We also had Professor Clark asserting that Gerald Lilpop is a domestic terrorist. I guess you want to add purveyor of wild accusations to your list of legacies you're going to leave this board with, Alan. Alan, you can add to that being principally responsible for this underfunded community center, which is dragging the district into economic oblivion, and stealing the fire department's contingency fund to keep the community center's doors open, and being the chief hater of free speech. Late-breaking news, Professor Clark on CD threatening to burn down Bill Carey's home. Pretty ridiculous, isn't it, Alan? Ridiculous, huh? Just as ridiculous as you repeatedly asserting that Gerald Lilpop is a domestic terrorist who threatened to blow up the skate park. It's the same thing. It's amazing just how much stupid you people can fit into 1 month. By the way, Professor Clark, the next time you and Director Stanton decide to conduct district business at Applebee's, you might look around to see who's sitting by you and keep your voices down. You could plainly be heard talking about residents Barbara Rogers and Gerald Lilpop, as well as a certain district employee, whom I will not name, and their issue with the district and the union's involvement in that. Next time, use a little discretion. Interesting factoid. This community center only has 3 groups that are regularly renting space from it. Next fact. The $112,000 invoice that the general manager hid on her desk during the budget process and then finally showed only 2 board members, the board members of her choosing, excluding the board president, of course. Then there's the insanity of the board actually extending the general manager's contract for 2 years in spite of her obvious incompetence that has been repeatedly brought to their attention. There is honestly just not enough time to review all the ignorant and inept things this board does in 1 month. And once again, I'll have to express my apologies to you, Shiva, to have to lump you into that group that I call the board. I know you're doing your best with the 4 male dimwits you have to work with.
Start the clock. Well, something I was not going to say, but if there's someone that's coming in this room and has a fear of any one of us, pretty sad. I think that person's development is retarded, and what they really should do is lock themselves in their house, because every time you leave your house, there's a possibility of something bad happening to you. much more so than anything bad happening from this old guy or any one of these other people here. I do want to talk on extending the general manager's contract for 2 years. If I had eaten my dinner, I would have got sick. I've dealt with this lady almost from day one, and I found her to be, in a lot of cases, an outright, and in my opinion, liar. Almost a pathological liar, having lied when she didn't need to. So what we've done is we've developed a new standard for a general manager, which means we have no standard for a general manager. We're going to give this lady 2 years, and I would guess we're going to give her pay raises, and probably we will give her pay raises by, well, human resources wouldn't buy into this, and none of you, other than Shiva, could be in the human resources department because the company, if it was a public company, would go belly up. We'll probably pay for dysfunction and ineptness rather. That's where the big pay raises go. And I would think if we're going to do this, we should have given her a lifetime contract because there's no standard to measure this lady for. Everything that she does, she says will happen in the future. Now, I don't know if I'm going to live long enough to see this future that's going to happen. Back to the 3 minutes on the open forum. Alan Clark mentioned at a meeting that he was going to have an agenda item for a 3-minute open forum. You know, that again was to restrict us. And he should have said 1 minute. He knew he couldn't get that. And then at Applebee's it was brought up. And again, we heard the conversation with Alan and Greg about a 3-minute open forum. In the August special meeting, we get an agenda that says we are going to have 3 minutes. And right away, Mary jumps up and says, oh, I can explain that. That's an easy one. We cut and paste. Well, I'm going to tell you something. I have all the agenda items for 2012, 5 minutes. All the agenda items for 2011, 5 minutes. Where did you cut and paste? Did you go back to 1896 or some prior year? I talked to a printer. Cut and paste is usually done in the previous month. You said the previous year. Now, if we go back all these years, did you just look for something you could find in 2008 and 9 to cut and paste? With all this evidence, I think you wanted to make this a 3-minute item. So, yeah, I have evidence, and with all this evidence, I have to say, Mary, you're lying to us again, because you don't go back years to cut and paste.
Barbara Rogers, Cameron Park. I just want to go on the record with the in reference to the letter you read in the beginning. I don't consider myself a troublemaker, and I don't consider myself dangerous, and I would like to think Mr. and Mrs. O'Cam don't consider that of me, out of respect of knowing Mr. O'Cam from when he sat on the Shingle Springs Board of Directors for the fire district there when I was working for County Fire. You know, I'm not, this is not at all negative. However, my whole point of coming here for people that have not heard it before is the budget and my fire department and why this building sits empty weekend after weekend after weekend. We are in huge budget problems. For anybody sitting in this room that does not believe me, I invite you to look over the budget. If you don't understand budgets, I can certainly help you. I know other people that can assist you. And that is the reason I am here. And I resent this whole, there's like a line being drawn again. This side over here and this side over there, which I think is being perpetrated by some people sitting on the board. And I, as a taxpayer and a very concerned citizen for years, I have never faltered from what I said from day one about the center. We can't afford it. Everything I said is true. I don't think the people in this room that are against us or me or whoever, I take it personally against me. know really what is going on financially because I don't see the board opening up to the public. And I think it's time, gentlemen and lady, that you let the public know that you all approved a deficit spending budget for next year. You approved a deficit spending budget last year. We're going to have huge budget problems. And it was like you approved a budget for this year on the come, for a lack of a better verbiage, of if we have the money, we'll be able to hire people and we'll be able to do this or that. Well, y'all pretty know you're not going to have the money. And you've been spending every dime that you have, and the money that you have been spending, you have been taking from the fire department. This is my open forum. I'm going to say what I'm going to say.
It's part of the agenda.
Well, I'm still going to say what I'm going to say. I feel that I'm standing up for me as a person, that I am being misconstrued by people of something that I'm not. I am here because I do love my community, but I'm also here because I know what's going on financially. And I am not lying, and I am not a troublemaker. I am telling the truth, but nobody up here really is listening to any of us for almost 6 years. I've been saying it. 6 years. I don't know what it's going to take for this community to wake up and to know what the truth really is. And they also need to know that the odds are you're going to go out, your manager is going to go out for a study to find cheaper fire service. So when we get bargain-based firefighters, and you don't get the quality we're paying for now, I hope you all remember what I'm telling you, because it's all the truth. It's my open forum, I'm going to say it. And it's my open forum, you don't shut anybody else down, I'm going to finish what I'm saying. I'm going to finish what I'm saying. It's going to come out from me. This is what I've been saying for years, and this is not lies. And I'm not a troublemaker, and I'm not a danger to anybody. And I resent the fact that it's implied. So this is the truth for I can't turn around and face anybody. This is the truth, and the people that know me in this room, they know I'm telling the truth. If you notice, I'm sitting next to Mrs. Arnold. She knows what's going on after all these years. That should be a wake-up call to some of the people sitting in this room that think everything's negative. It's not. We just want the truth. You want to wait till we file bankruptcy, everybody in this room? Or do you want to wait until maybe they have to go out for a tax because they can't afford this community center? It's the truth, people. I'm not lying. And it's going to come out more and more and more. This is what's going on here, and you guys all know it.